Oh, hey, Kyoko, I have before we officially, well, when we officially start, I have a couple of happy announcements. So let me know when it's time.
Okay, can you all see the slides?
Yeah, we can see the slides. Okay, so let's get started. I just have the happy announcements to start going.
I mean,
Yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah, I can see. I can see.
Okay.
Oops. Hey, Nate, you're
Better
talking over
sound,
me.
by
Can you
the way?
hear me?
I think so. Yeah, it should be.
Cool.
All right, can
Hey,
everyone
Nate.
hear us?
No,
We're
you're talking
at the
over
lab
me.
right now.
Nate, I don't think you can
I
hear
just want to
things.
make sure everyone
You're
can see my
talking over me.
slides. I
Nate,
cannot
I don't
hear
think
you.
you
Hold
can
on,
hear
hold on.
things.
Sorry, I had the volume down on the TV.
Yeah, you're talking over me. So I have a couple announcements to go before Nate starts up. So we have a couple happy announcements. So I want to, people in the lab have been really successful getting into grad school, getting grants, and so forth. So we just want to give cheers and congratulations. Well, first to Nate, our lab manager. He's currently, there's no official announcements, but he's currently engaged in a bidding war between two top programs that want him and trying to outcompete each other. So he's going to go, he's in two great doctoral programs. So some folks know this, but I just want to make it public and just say congratulations, Nate, for that. The next person who's headed off to grad school is Skylar. So Skylar is also currently engaged in a bidding war between two top programs for her MPH, Masters in Public Health, and they're trying to compete with each other with money. And Nate too, it's like, my God, how many times you get, two of our folks are getting into bidding wars for money. So it's a sign of what you can do after you're in the lab for a couple of years, and we fully indoctrinate you. You become hot property. And then finally, a very, very big congratulations to Aman, who just got into two top summer programs in the biosciences, and he's going to be freaking amazing when he comes back. He'll be, he'll have that.
Totally good. Yeah, sorry, I just get so tired of texting at times that sometimes this is just easier for me.
So congratulations to Aman for that, and maybe when he comes back, he'll have like radioactive spider powers or something like that. So that's my announcements. If anyone else has announcements of positive things that have happened, let us know. Oh, and the last positive thing is we got our freaking tables. So if you have been in the lab recently, thanks to the help of everyone who came, we got the hydraulic tables in the lab, and somehow we managed to fit them into the through the door, and they're there. And so we just have to now do the job of setting them up, and then we'll have hydraulic tables, which will allow people of differing who need different table heights to use lab, also make us get put stuff on it, and it'll be anyway. It's one of the access features that the lab's been really missing for a while, and hopefully we can get the CNC up. So I think that's it for good news. Anything else from anyone else want to celebrate something? Okay, I think that was it. So I will pass the baton on to Nate, who's going to give us a talk of, he's going to do 800 years of disability history in 20 minutes, something like that. So it's going to be amazing. Okay, take it on, Nate.
Thanks, y'all. Everyone can see my slides, right? Sorry for the audible hiccup. I had the volume down on the TV in the lab, and so I couldn't hear if anyone was telling me. So everyone can see my slides, right? It should be a white, just a white background, disability history, 1050 to late 1800. Slides looking good? Okay. Yeah, so originally I had some other slides, and I felt they were more aesthetically pleasing, but I remembered also quite a few people are red-green blind, and so I decided to go with this one instead. So I just want to make sure everyone can see that. Okay, so I'm going to open up with this quote from Michel Foucault. Once leprosy has gone and the figure of the leper was no more than a distant memory, these structures still remain. The game of exclusion will be played again, often in these same places, in an oddly similar fashion, 2 or 3 centuries later. The role of the leper was to be played by the poor and by the vagrant, by prisoners and by the alienated. And a sort of salvation at stake for both parties in this game of exclusion is the matter of this study. Michel Foucault, History of Madness. So on this next slide here, we have an image description. It's a black and white image of 3 figures: a woman with a basket, a disabled man with a cane and using an early prosthetic leg, and a child pointing the way for this disabled man. And the next slide, we have a leper wearing a red and blue shawl and a hat that covers them, and they are ringing a bell, right? And the key concepts we're having from this one in the early 1050s is religion, charity, pity, demonizing, and infantilizing, right? And for those of us that know about like the, because we went over earlier in the semester, the 4 core theories, right, of the social model, the medical model, the charity model, and the religious model, right? And so we're looking back and we're actually looking at the roots right now of a lot of the religious and charity models of disability, all the way back to 1050, AD in medieval England, right? And I don't use these phrases lightly, right? But a lot of really ableist language, came from this time frame, right? Because disabled people were a highly visible presence in everyday life in the medieval ages. So a lot of terminology about disabled folks is derived from medieval language that we still use today, right? Where you have certain languages and words like, and I don't like saying these words, right? But this is where they come from: dumb, right? Fool, lame, lunatic, right? They all came from these time frames. And then, back then, people could be born with the disability or were disabled by diseases such as leprosy or years of backbreaking work, just like we are now, right? Where we have disability, folks that are born with disability and folks that, interact and encounter it later on in life. It's still the same. And we are, 1,000 some odd years later, and where are we at now, right? We're still here. We're still here at this time frame, and we haven't moved forward yet. Because, back then, people, and still today, people thought disability was a punishment for a sin. So it was often demonized, right? Especially when you think about like mental health and folks who encounter diseases like leprosy, right? They were looked at and they were looked down upon as being sinners, right? Like they had deserved it. Like this was a punishment from God that that they deserved it, right? It's like they deserved to be had to have schizophrenia, right? Because it was the demons talking through them, right? And others believe that disabled people were closer to God. So you also have this early infantizing of disability, right? And since they were suffering on purgatory on earth rather than after death, they would get to heaven sooner, right? So we also connect these dots to the infantizing of disabled folks all the way back to 1050, right? So this is how long this is going on. And so, as we as disability advocates, we are, we're literally undoing over 1,000 years of ableism. So we think about this. This is like really connecting these dots back. And also back then, and this is connecting back to the religious model of disability. In the medieval ages, the state did not provide assistance. Sometimes the village or the town would help, or the family, but for the most part, the church did, because it was, their Christian duty to take pity on these disabled people, right? So we have these connections to these early religious and charity models, right? And it's really frustrating when you think about it that we have not come that far in terms of really changing it. And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about lately. On the next slide, we have on the left, we have another image of a leper. He has different like tumors on their face. They have reddish brown hair and a black hat with a black jacket. And on the next image on the right, we have a picture of a church, because the majority of these early hospitals were created by the church, and provided, money was provided by the church and everything as well. But this also led to excuse me. So, and this next image is of Bedlam Hospital, right? Some of you may be familiar with Bedlam Hospital. It was actually founded in this same time frame. It was known back then as Bethlehem Hospital in the city of London. And the images of Bedlam Hospital, it's a Victorian style manor with trees and gates stretching from left to right, very picturesque, right? And hospitals like these were providing care for, or what they would call care for disabled people of all kinds, all throughout the UK and Western Europe. And for those of you that know, Bedlam is very famous. And for those of you who don't know, Bedlam was a notorious hospital used to conduct years of institutional violence against many disabled people. And patients were routinely beaten, starved, and dunked in ice cold baths throughout the existence of Bedlam, right? And so Bedlam's history stretches all the way back to this time frame with the church founding it. Now, when things started to change, and we started to move, England started to move to a more public funded hospital, is when Henry VIII came along. And so for some of y'all that remember Henry VIII, who is pictured here, Henry VIII is pictured as a very heavy white man with a scraggly beard, wearing Tudor style clothes with a black hat and like red drapery type of jacket. He divorced, and he cut off the church because the church didn't agree with this. So he cut off the church and he kicked them basically out of England. This led to the closure of many church-run hospitals. And this also led to many disabled people being visually out and about and being seen as a nuisance by the general public, right? So this led to Henry VIII calling, and the people calling for Henry VIII to make something happen for these poor disabled people, right? Under the guise of pity, but also hide them from sight, right? Because they didn't want to see this. Kind of like what we're seeing right now, right? I don't know if y'all saw, but Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is trying to institute a new law that will basically remove homeless people from the street and institutionalize them. That just came out today. I've been seeing that on Reddit on a whole bunch of different threads, so I haven't had a lot of chance to unpack it yet. That's what I mean. We haven't got that far yet. We are going in circles, right? And when the people were calling for Henry VIII to make changes, he did, and it led to the formation of other public hospitals like St. George, St. Bartholomew, the reopening of Bethlehem, or Bedlam, as it would know to be called, and later the formation of private paid-for hospitals for richer aristocrats, right, who had mental health issues. These hospitals will maintain the standard of institutions of disabled people for nearly 500 years in the Western Hemisphere, right? Next slide. So on these images here, on the left image is a black and white photo of many people in Bedlam, basically. This is an artist rendering of what life was like in institutions such as Bedlam. You have one person who's basically they're drilling into his head, trying to release the demons. You have other people in various states of mania. Right, this is what people described and thought of many disabled folks especially the mental, people in the institutions like Bedlam. On the right image is another black and white political cartoon, and how people were, like disabled folks who were seen as incurable were in the institutions. And the picture is of 3 people all chained by their necks to the wall with their caregiver, right? I use the term, lightly in this case, giving them food, right? They're basically this savior coming in to save them. Yeah. And institutionalization took many shapes and forms during the 1500s to the late 1800s. And the body mind shifted from a religious and charity model in the 1050s to the pathologization and the medical model of the body mind in the 1500s, where patients were treated to more places and experiences like Bedlam being normalized and hidden away. Later on in the mid 1800s, a new class of medical professional known as the alienist, which we know now today as the psychiatrist, and it was the alienist's job to study, understand, care for, and assist patients in overcoming their mental alienation, right? Because that's what it was back then. It was mental alienation. It wasn't an illness. It wasn't a disability. It was an alienation. And at first, alienists believed that these asylums were peaceful places where patients could be restored by moral treatment, right? Because they had to treat the demons, right? But by the end of the century, they had lost their therapeutic optimism and believed that most patients were incurable. The asylums contained chronic and quote unquote dangerous cases, and most of the inmates, basically most of the patients, never left, right? Because that's exactly what happened. This style of pathologizing led scientists and doctors to wonder if there were better ways to detect, quote, defective people. This led to the development of such ableist and racist sciences as phrenology and eugenics. I'm going to the next slide, on slide 6. On the left is the phrenology human head description that says, know thyself, and the Phrenology Journal and Science of Health, a first-class monthly. And it shows a whole bunch of the thoughts on phrenology and how phrenology was used. On the image of the right is of the eugenic tree and how eugenics is the self-direction of human evolution. Like a tree, eugenics draws its materials from many sources and gives them organic unity and purpose, right? Because there's a lot of things with purity in eugenics, and we're going to touch on that later. But for right now, we're going to focus on phrenology. And so what is phrenology? Well, phrenology is a detailed study of the shape and size of the cranium as a supposed indication of character and mental abilities. It's developed by German physician Franz Joseph Gall in 1796. And at the time, it was considered the only true science of the mind. It was a faculty of psychology focusing on the theory of the brain and science of character reading. The basic tenets of Gall's systems were: the brain is the organ of the mind is composed of multiple distinct innate faculties. Because they are distinct, each faculty must have a separate seat or organ in the brain. The size of the organ, other things being equal, is a measure of its power. Number 5, the shape of the brain is determined by the development of the various organs. And 6, as the skull takes the shape of the brain, the surface of the skull can be read as an accurate index of psychology, aptitudes, and tendencies, right? So they believe by measuring your head, by also the shape of your head, they could tell if you were, a grifter, if you were going to be a criminal, if you were going to be disabled, right? In their terms, defective. This is also how they used to put to show and reinforce white supremacy, right? Where they were showing that the Nordic white man was the pinnacle of humanity, right? And everyone else was lower. And this is the science that they used for this, right? And it's needless to say, it's really messed up, and it was really prevalent back in that day. Believe it or not, I know now it might be unbelievable that they would do such a thing or use such a science, but this is what they did. they really use this to try and exclude people from society, basically. And I mean, we even, we were even using it in terms to ban immigrants, right, that were coming over into this country. They were using it to ban immigrants coming from different countries that were deemed as undesirable, right? They use this quote unquote science to determine this. And this is where I want to leave you all today, because 20 minutes is not enough time to go over disability history. I know I glossed over it a lot, but with 20 minutes, I want to leave time for us to talk about, and I want to pick this back up with eugenics, because eugenics is going to be a whole another thing to unpack. For those of y'all that are familiar with it, really briefly, I will touch on it, is eugenics is a scientifically erroneous and immoral theory of racial improvement and planned breeding, which gained popularity during the early 20th century. Eugenicists worldwide believe that they could perfect human beings and eliminate so-called social ills through genetics and hereditary. So we're going to touch on eugenics the next time I talk, and we're also going to go into the decline of institutionalization and then the rise of it again, because that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Is we're seeing the rise of institutionalization again, where you're having the public demand that they institutionalize disabled folks, oftentimes who are homeless, and those who are not. You're seeing quite a bigger demand for that. So I want to leave time for questions. I may have gone a little bit over time. Sorry, I wasn't keeping track. I got a little flustered earlier on. But yeah, that's it for now. Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to questions. I'm going to stop sharing now. All right. Where did I go? Did I close the Zoom? I didn't close the Zoom, right? Okay. No, I didn't.
I mean, it's not being shared anymore.
Okay. I cannot find the Zoom thing. No. Can everyone hear me still? Because I cannot find my Zoom thing. It like disappeared.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, Nate. That was a really great presentation.
Thanks, y'all. I
know
see
you
it.
can't see the chat, but there are people.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Just trying to resituate myself because I have like 2 screens on. Okay, let's go mirror display. Instead, that might help. And then, okay. Okay, I can see the Zoom thing again. Sorry about that. Okay, so thanks, y'all. I was trying to fit that in, and there was just so much. I really want to touch on like Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that later. I figure I'd make that a part of a media history of disability, because there's just so much to really unpack, and it's really hard to unpack all this in 20 minutes. So I focused on specifically how this led back from the charity model, religious model, into the medical model, and I'm hoping to touch on the other models in the next lecture. Emily, please go ahead.
I was going to ask, because it was really interesting, I think, when you talked about how religion or people with religious backgrounds see disability, and I was wondering, like, what do you know of, like, what is the case today? Is it the same as it was before? Like, has anything really changed within like the church on how they view disability? Like, I think the church overall probably like has like probably says one thing, but I think the actions of individual people say another. But I don't know if like concretely, like what is the difference now?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously, one of the differences, they don't have as much. I don't say they don't have as much influence, because they do have influence, right? But and as far as like running the hospitals go, I don't believe they have as much influence in comparison as they did back in the day. I mean, there are still, some churches that do have a lot of influence on some hospitals, but it's not as widespread as it was back in the day. But I know for myself, in my experiences as a disabled person, like when I encounter some religious folks, their first instinct for whatever reason is to say, "Oh, bless your heart, what happened to you? Why are you in a power chair?" or blah blah blah. I'm going to pray for you so you can walk again, or something along those lines, right? That's typically how most of it goes for me when I encounter a lot of religious folks. Karen said mainline churches are getting better, but many believers and many sects still lay the blame on D. And yeah, they do. There is still quite a bit of that. I don't think you were here when I give the orientation with the different models of disability. But when you think about it, we still have faith healers today who believe that they can make you walk again with the power of his word, right? Where they'll stand up and they lay their hands, they'll lay their hands on you and you'll get up and walk, right? Or they throw a faith Hadouken at you and then you'll get up and start walking again, right? And it's one of those things where oftentimes, and it depends on which faith, because it's not just Christianity, right? It's also seen in a lot of different places, right? You see it different times in like a lot of Hinduism also, right? Because you have karma, right? Because it was bad karma that got you that disability, right? Or got you that illness or disease, right? You see it sometimes. You see it also in the Buddhist faiths where it's like it was, you were bad in a past life, right? So unfortunately, it's still there. We've come a long way, but we haven't at the same time in a lot of ways. Oh, geez, yeah, Moira, yeah, good call. The queer healing, yeah. I mean, this is still going on to this day. All this stuff is still going on. Like, so in terms of like as we've progressed, we still haven't progressed that much in a lot of ways, because you still have a lot of charity models. Like they may have sometimes become more secular, right? But you still have a lot of charity, you still have a lot of pity models, you still have a lot of things that connect back to things like charity engineering, right? And shiny tech, right? And this is why I think sometimes we encounter, like for instance, sometimes when we encounter designers from other parts of the world, right? Because we're also getting a glimpse into seeing how their culture identifies disability, right? We're getting a chance to see how their culture thinks about disabled folks when we start seeing their shiny technology from other parts of the world, right? And that's why I think technology is a really fascinating artifact, because we're giving the opportunity to see what they think about us. You know what I mean? Because and that's why, like I titled this on the other one, it says Western disability history, and I didn't get a chance to carry this over, I think, onto this one. But the reason I did that was because, via Cassandra Hartblay, right? Cassandra Hartblay has established that not everywhere in the world identifies disability as we do in the Western world, right? We have our identity, disability identities, but then also you have other parts of the world who don't identify in the way of being disabled that we do, right? So there's a lot of different cultural takes on disability and how they're impacted. And sometimes here in the Western world, we identify that as being, internalized ableism, but it might be one of those things too, where it's just, that's also how they identify because of the culture. So that's some of those things that we're also going to have to unpack one of these days. So that's something I've been speaking with Cassandra Hartley about. It's been really fascinating. Any other questions? I have like a minute left. Nope, I got it. Okay. I think next we're going to be moving on to TensorFlow. And yeah, Moira, that's true story about disabled identity. I learned so much in Denmark and Hungary. Yeah, you do, because it's different here and it's different there. And that's why I try to focus it in the concept of Western. Yeah, no worries. I got you. All right. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and open it up to TensorFlow. Thank you. Yeah, you're off of mute. Yes.
All right, Alex, ready for you.
What was that?
Hi.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm speaking through Nate's computer, but I will be presenting for Tensor Chumps, or Team TensorFlow officially. All right, cool. So can everyone see the slides? First of all, let me just get some thumbs up and/or comments in the chat. Okay, I see a thumbs up. That's
yeah,
good.
I can see.
Always a good sign. All right, fantastic, cool. So, hi everyone. I'm Alex, one of the team leads for Tensor Chumps, And this is our lovely team. C'est moi, the first one. I'm there with my dog. We're both chilling on a couch. Then there's Alex, smiling as always, in front of a chair overlooking the city. Then there's Skylar, who is sitting on a rock at the beach, also smiling. Look at us, all happy. Moving on, we also have Jonah, also smiling in front of a beach wall. And finally, Suan, who is smiling in front of a wall of balloons. So we're all just a bunch of smiling people smiling in front of different backgrounds. That is, I guess, how you could summarize us. Cool. So today, I want to go over 4 main things about how TensorFlow has been, how we're planning on going forward. So first of all, let's go on to updates. If you have any like pressing things, please feel free to interrupt me as well. Just unmute yourself. I'll be checking the chat as well. Cool. All right, so updates. First of all, Alex and I are the captain now. So Cam, yeah, I'm the captain now. So Cam's been a little busy, so leadership has shifted over a little to Alex and I. We're kind of still settling a couple things, but mostly I think everything's kind of, evened out by now. And next up, we all have, as per Cam's request, looked at and finished Deep Lizard's deep learning course. And so we all have a basic understanding of what machine learning is, how it does, how it works, and everything. And kind of related to this is also that we had an emergency meeting last Sunday, just to go over what was going on and what we should do for the rest of the semester. And this presentation is the product of that meeting. So cool. We finished updates. We're moving on to goals. So our first goal is a not shiny ML curriculum, a not shiny ML education. So getting people to understand what machine learning is, but not in the, oh, it's going to fix all your problems. You just have to throw data at it, because it hasn't worked like that. And it's not going to work like that, because that's just not, machine learning is not the panacea to all of your problems. So usually, as you can see, whenever someone tells you about machine learning, you can probably see it related with these kinds of pictures, like, a neuron looking super high tech on the left as we have it, or one of the neural networks represented as a big graph with a bunch of circles joined together by a bunch and like uncountable amount of edges and lines, or the classic, oh, half brain, half human brain and half electronic brain. And what we've all come to a conclusion to is that essentially this is bullshit. Like, this is not really what's gonna, theoretical results do not equal attainable results. Exactly. Yes. Thank you, Oliver. Yes. So this is not really what we want to teach. We don't want to, get people super on the machine learning hype train. We want to actually kind of go against that and demystify it. So that brings us to our 4 questions that we would like to answer, or at least, if we put ourselves in the place of people who are going to take this course, we would like to let them know, first of all, what is ML and why should you care? More importantly, like why even learn about it, right? That is one of the our main goals to answer that question. The second one is, how does training a model work? Because mostly all the bias and all the bad things that you see kind of all stem from how you train your models, what data you pick, and how everything in that part of the deployment of the model takes place. And then, kind of related to that is, what is algorithmic bias and when does it happen? Those two are really, really, really related. But I guess question 2, how does training a model work, is more geared towards the, what do you call it? The technical side, whereas 3 is more geared towards the social side of what machine learning is and its impact on this world. And 4th, of course, kind of encompassing all this, is how do we create disabled friendly models? Because we'd like to have those around, since basically none of them at the moment are disabled centered or disabled friendly. This is all based, of course, on Professor Karen's paper and presentation, which are linked in the slides. And yeah, I definitely recommend everyone read and or look over at the slides. They're pretty good. Cool. So yeah, once again, to restate, our main purpose is to demystify artificial intelligence and machine learning. And kind of the way we see this kind of coming to an end, like the product, so to speak, would be to have disabled and marginalized people in conversations of machine learning. So, when they pretty good. Yeah. I said what I said. I'm just kidding. No, they're fantastic. But anyhow, the whole idea is to have disabled and marginalized people with the right tools to join in on a machine learning or artificial intelligence conversation and be able to understand, first of all, what's going on, and second of all, to be able to point out all the problems within a given model. Like if Microsoft says they're releasing this super high-tech thing that will, allow, I don't know, sign language to be turned into speech or something like that, to be able to say like, hey, that's wrong because this and that, and also to be able to question, what data are you using, how are you training your model, and all these sorts of things. And we kind of had a different idea at the beginning of the semester, which was a capstone project, more kind of traditional in the sense that students would be able to, get their understanding and create something with it, which I think is still a valid goal. However, it might be better at the moment to just, at the very least, start with something a little smaller and to kind of focus in on reducing kind of this imbalance in knowledge and, the inaccessibility of a machine learning education. So the capstone project, we're not sure. We'll figure out if we do that based on how far along we get on the other goals of demystifying published papers and present. Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. I mean, that might be another goal. That'd be cool too. Publish papers and present at CS, UX, user experience and human computer interaction or anthropology conferences, as Professor Karen says in the chat. Yeah, cool. The way we're doing this, hopefully, is to create tangible, meaning that they're not just visual. We also hope to have some multi-sensory components to the way we teach. We're doing it in about 4 educational models is our main goal, that each one kind of answers the questions that we laid out. What is machine learning, how to train, algorithmic bias, and disabled friendly models. And hopefully we would have these kind of with a good enough structure that we are ready to ship them out anywhere if anyone asks us to give a talk or something, to just be able to kind of deploy that really quickly and make it sort of very systematic. That is what we would like to see. And the second goal, which is kind of, they're both the same goal, but I would like to kind of separate them a little so that the slides don't get too cluttered, is outreach, of course, which is if we're going to create something for disabled people, we should consult with disabled people, meaning that we're going to be reaching out to SF Lighthouse, which I think Skylar is going to help us with, and also the Oakland Public Schools, which Cam had already reached out to. So it's kind of just picking up that last point of contact. And then maybe we're still figuring it out, but it would be cool to also have YouTube videos, so that it gets a wider reach, but we're not entirely sure about that. So hence the question mark in parentheses on that. Cool. That's all the goals. And then you might be asking yourself, how are we going to do this, which is how I'm presenting our workflow. How we're going to be doing stuff this semester is mostly we're going to manage ourselves through Notion and Slack. I have links to the Notion on the slides as well, if anyone wants to check it out. And the Slack will hashtag Team Tensor Chumps on the Slack, the Disability Lab Slack, if you're interested in seeing what we tell each other and what we're up to. This is kind of the layout of the way we're doing things. It's a board. There is a board for each person, and within the board there are different sections. There's the no status, which usually has nothing. And then there's different subsections divided by the point at which each task is. So if a task hasn't started yet, like if, say, I assign to Skylar a task of, do the Friday meeting slides, I'm going to put it in not started so that they know that, you have something going on and you should probably, look into doing that. And then they can move it around to in progress once they start that thing. And then once you move it into completed, it should disappear. This is an old one. I made it so that the completed things disappear after Okay. Yeah. So essentially, it's just moving stuff from left to right, task as they progress, and trying to keep track of where we're at with the different tasks that we're assigned and are assigning. And there's also, if anyone wants to see what we've accomplished, I also made a progress view in which it shows basically all the completed tasks and when they were completed, how long it took, and blah, blah, blah. I could nerd out about Notion for way too long, so I'm going to stop right there. But essentially, if you have any questions on our Notion, or if you want to set up a Notion or anything, feel free to reach out. I think it's really good. I haven't heard any negative feedback yet, so we'll see about how that goes. But yeah, that's how we're going to be working. And now that that is out of the way, we have to figure out, well, what's next, right? So I see the next, well, Alex and I see the next steps as, first of all, starting to consult with organizations and prototype the tangible modules, kind of running in parallel, but of course, we need to consult to be able to really accurately have things that will serve the needs of disabled people, which is why we're reaching out as soon as possible. And then our process is just going to be, once we get a module or, something tangible, then we consult, and then they give us feedback, and then we, iterate and update whatever based on whatever feedback we got. And then we do that again, we consult again, and then we keep on going, just kind of on this, continuous loop of the same process over and over until we get something that's really, really good and something that people really, really want. So yeah. In summary, we want to teach Not Shiny artificial intelligence and machine learning to marginalized folks with a specific focus on disabled people. We're doing that through tangible multi-sensory modules, and we're going to be managing ourselves through Notion and Slack. Cool. That is all for this presentation, and the only thing left is to answer your questions if you have any. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone on the team is happy to answer them.
Karen says SIG
SIG
access, SIG fan. Do y'all have a reading list of AI stuff you recommend?
Yeah. So one
Or
second.
what you've been reading on it?
Yes. So a lot of it's in the Slack, just kind of in random, like lost things. But if you look at the Notion, this is the main homepage, right? Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And here we have a log of helpful resources that we found. For example, here's the Deep Lizard tutorial that we all use to kind of get familiar with machine learning in the more technical aspect. This is the Google Drive that we were using at the beginning of the semester. We switched to Notion because it's easier to centralize a lot of things, I think, but the Google Drive is pretty useful too. And here we have Professor Nakamura's slides from her SIG Access conference, and then the paper that went along with those slides. So you can just open the page, click on the link, and it'll tell you, it'll show you the paper right there. So I will take the time, probably not today, probably this weekend, to gather all the resources that have been sent into the Slack over the history of the channel and put them on there if anyone wants to look at it. So yeah. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, all right, no problem, Dana. And then
They're just talking about conferences.
Yeah.
You brought up the SIG Access conference. That's in October. Deadline is April. So if you wanted to start working on that, you could. And then Karen says we should apply to Access. Lab will pay if we get in.
Oops.
Sensible should apply also.
Yeah.
Any other questions for TensorFlow?
Access the link, Jesus. I'm actually gonna.
I think just pop a little chat.
Yeah. For assets, there are mentoring requests that you can apply to. They help you with first-time submissions to ACM conferences. Yes. Assets equals SIG access. How do we tell the two Alex apart without an algorithm?
Alex,
That is
Alex,
an NP hard problem. Meaning it cannot be solved in, a fast time. I think, I don't know. I really don't know how to tell the two Alexes apart without an algorithm, especially since asked them to play so much. That is an algorithm though.
Okay. Any other questions for TensorFlow before we start rolling over to Toolkit? We got a little bit of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you go back to the slide of people you're gonna reach out to?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sorry, you came in a little broken.
Oh, sorry. You hear me?
Could you type it in the chat,
Yes.
please?
Yeah, Kyoko, you got the robot voice going on.
Can you go back to the slides of folks reaching out to?
Sure.
Oh, you're reaching out to. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So SF Lighthouse, Oakland Unified, and then YouTube videos possibly.
Yeah. So this is not a finalized nor a comprehensive list of organizations we'd like to reach out. These are just like our first kind of easiest points of contact at the moment. So if anyone has any suggestions of people we can reach out to, please do let either Alex or Alex know. I think, and then yeah. You can see it by the way.
Okay. Anybody else going once, going twice before we move to Toolkit?
Okay.
Okay. Abby, whenever you're ready, I believe you have share screen. Alex, go ahead and stop sharing.
Great.
All right.
All right, can people see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. So hi everyone, I'm Abby and I am the team lead for Team Toolkit. And I'm just gonna give you a rundown about our project and kind of where we're at right now. And I love this image on the first slide of just like different cubes connected together using different strings, because that's really the idea behind this is just trying to create a web of resources for high schoolers to be able to launch their own disability cultural spaces on their campuses. Let's see. So before I get into more details about what the project is, just want to introduce who's on the team. And just as a disclaimer, this team has been very fluid this semester, so there's a good chance that these names are going to be different the next time that I present or later in the semester. But for our team, we have Ida, and she uses she, her pronouns, and she's going to be, she just joined the lab recently this past week, and she's going to be working on some of the content creation. And one of the things that she wanted to do with this, why she wanted to join, is just get more things involved in more things on campus and just learn more about disability too. Kyoko, who uses they, them pronouns, is also going to be working on our team temporarily as a content creator. And Kyoko kind of came in as a clutch player because we need more people. And so, yes, they're great to join our team right now. And also Eleanor uses she, her pronouns, and she's going to be kind of working in more of a consultant capacity with less hours per week, but still looking over the content we're creating and giving her input. And then also from Team Prop, Sienna and Ishan are going to be working on our project also. So for a project description, I have here an image of just a classic toolkit with a bunch of tools sitting upright in it. And, you know, similar to the cubes on the first slide, this is really just the goal of the project is to, we have this mission of creating this toolkit for high schoolers who are looking to create their own disability cultural spaces and just giving them all the resources they need to build it. And so they don't have to do the work of finding the resources for themselves or creating it. We can just give them the box, and they can do with it whatever they want with it. And so this looks like just some background on disability, as you know, developing a sense of what is disability, like we've gone over in the lab, is critical to doing this kind of work. So that's a big part of the toolkit. Also, just practical things about how to find a teacher advisor, and also ideas for different club, like different topics to cover in the lab. Oh, sorry, not in the lab, in the club meetings, and kind of this idea of creating some different arcs that they can choose to go through, so that it's like a multi-step, multi-day process, so that people want to be coming back to kind of like help build in hopefully some retention into the disability cultural clubs. Yeah. And then getting into more of the vision behind the project, I have this image of a person standing in front of this blue door with this like kind of fantastical green kind of enchanted forest look behind it. And I really like this like metaphor for the project, is because it's simple and it's just like a toolkit of resources, but really the vision is that we'll be able to equip young people today, like kind of moving forward with the resources to be able to, one, know the disability community exists, and for disabled students who want to find that early so they could take that with them for the rest of their lives. And also just to increase everyone's exposure to disability and ableism, so that hopefully the peers of people and in the club and any non-disabled allies who want to join can, yeah, just take this critique of ableism just like people critique racism or homophobia or transphobia today. And kind of now I'm going to be going into the different phases of the project. So the one that we're kind of wrapping up currently is phase 1, which is creating and editing a primer on disability, which is what I was talking about, of just kind of gathering some basic disability studies topics, and some things maybe a little bit outside of disability studies, just so that people can know, yeah, just get exposure to this world of disability, and they can look more into it as they wish. And kind of in the primer are embedded different to, if you want to read more, look at this, or, you know, here's a list of a bunch of books or blogs or content creators or zines or movies and TV shows if you want to learn more. So kind of just like a jumping off point for people, really. The timeline for this is early/mid-March. I actually have already created the first draft of this, so we're looking great on schedule, and everyone on the team will be editing it for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll move on to phase 2, which is creating and editing club specific topics. So this falls into more of the club idea, like club session ideas, how to find a teacher advisor, these kinds of things that are more practical. This is the timeline for this is starting early to mid-March to the end of April, and all team members will be involved in this process. And this will be a lot of even just like looking around the web about what different schools require, and if there's like certain trends, and just kind of trying to establish what is the what is the right information, just kind of figuring it out as we go along to try and get into the mind of what does it look like to be able to actually start a club and a space, and then also give some helpful insights into making it a disability positive space and an accessible space also, because that is obviously a key tenet in what this is aiming to do. And finally, the phase 3 is going to be publishing the content on the lab website. And this is going to be iterative as we finish things. Probably they will likely be added. And this will be Ishan and Sienna doing this from Team Prop. And then in terms of how we're staying organized, we're using, similar to the previous team, we're using a Kanban board, Google Drive. We have weekly meetings at Tuesdays at 12:30, and I'm also assigning weekly action items just so we're all on the same track about what needs to get done. So this is an image of our Kanban board. It looks very similar to, again, the previous teams. They have what are called swim lanes with different statuses along the page within vertical columns, and then in different boxes, there are different tasks to create. And so kind of, you'll see on the board right now that the items that are in the status ready for review are things that I have assigned to myself and are in this, the information for the primer, and then the items that are not yet to be done are the ones for the club specific topics, which is yeah, where we're at right now. And then there's also on kind of falling off the page on the right hand side, there's a status for content ready to be published, so that this can be used for team prop, also in addition to our internal team, to be able to stay on the same page. And yeah, I have a couple of questions for feedback for you all. Yeah, so the current thing that we're trying to decide on is the order of the primer topics, which I'll kind of show you in the next slide. And the other thing is we just, I need more ideas for movies or TV shows that center disabled people well. I just haven't, my list, I kind of like blanked out on anything that was like beyond Crip Camp and Peanut Butter Falcon. And I would love any ideas if you want to put it in the chat or email me or Slack me. Yeah, and then this is the table of contents that I would love input on. Again, if you want to put it in the chat, email or Slack me about just the order of how to go about this. I kind of took an approach of focused a little bit more identity based and then kind of expanded out to disability, like more so like kind of the typical flow. So I did a little bit more of like, what is disability, the models of disability, disability justice, disability identity and pride first, and then grouping eugenics, disability laws, disability rights history. Language is a little bit low, but again, I don't want to like switch it out for anything. So yeah, basically this is the best flow that I could come up with at the time, but I would love any input that people have on it. And I'm also going to put the primer in the chat. So if anyone wants to look at that, feel free. And yeah, you're welcome to suggest anything also if you, or just look at it for your own knowledge if you, yeah, if you want to learn. And that is all that I have. So I will, thank you.
Hey Dana, this is Karen. This is so fantastic. It's amazing. I think one thing that's really important is that, you know, disabled people, and especially because it's oriented to high school, disabled people are so thought of as sexless that, you know, if we can do an intervention at the high school level for both the kids, disabled kids themselves, to resist this notion that, you know, they're not allowed to have, you know, a sex life, or to imagine themselves as being objects of desire without having to deal with the weird, you know, weirdos. I mean, there are fetishists, but you know, how do you have you know, how do you have good relationships and dating and stuff? Maybe just phrasing as dating as a disabled person, or dating and sex as a disabled person. But, you know, I just want the folks to have that as an early idea, because I think it's so prevalent, is that parents can't imagine disabled kids to you know, dating and having, you know, relationships. And I think that sort of feeds into kids themselves.
I love that idea, Karen. I'm wondering if that could work well as like content for maybe like one of the meetings of collecting some content. I know of, I forget the Rooted in Rights has content for people with intellectual disabilities in sex education, which that's like a good starting point. But I'm curious if you know of any other resources kind of along these lines for sex and dating.
There's a ton of great stuff that just got posted to the chat. So yeah.
Great.
And of great educators, ton of really great educators too.
Great. Awesome.
Hi, everybody. This is Moira. I'm working, I mean, I have an interest that may be interesting to you, and some stuff that we're working on in our lab, but also I regularly work on, is about access language and access needs language, which I feel is super important from my experience of working as a disabled person and also working with disabled youth and elders and just everybody, that we, like other oppressed people, have our culture and languages like pushed away, put down, etc. You know, and a lot of people don't know what their access needs are or what access is, because it's lacking in language. So I think that might be in your language area might be really great too, about what are your access needs, and thinking about people maybe as a thing to do, an exercise to do, is to do an access writer. But that's it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that idea. That's something that I've been exploring for myself recently, and it's been incredible. So I would love to connect more about ideas for those kinds of exercises or content that you have explaining them. I would love to connect on that.
Great, let's connect. Moira here. Moira out.
All right, and with that, I will stop sharing.
Any other comments or questions for Toolkit? No? Okay. Propaganda, whenever you're ready. Kyoko, is that you? You're coming in broken. Vaguely. You're still coming in pretty broken. I will try to introduce Toolkit. Actually, I don't think we had a chance to have Moira introduce themselves yet. Moira, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am happy to. I didn't prepare a slideshow because I'm new to this. Hi, everyone, I'm Moira. I'll do an image description. I have kind of reddish brown hair, and it's pulled back in a ponytail. It's long, not so long. Today I'm wearing glasses that have like a light rim, kind of aviator look. I'm having some low foggy sight stuff today. I have a long face. I have pale skin. I have really dark blue eyes that are sometimes look black, and I have okay looking eyebrows today. I'm wearing a yellowish brown of mustard kind of colored hoodie that's long sleeved, and I have a denim shirt under it. And behind me is an image of an estuary by the Great South Bay and Septuag country territory, which is part of the Lenape Algonquin speakers on the East Coast along the Great South Bay in Long Island. And I am currently and excited to be in Oakland right now. Yay, I just got here the other day. And I met with my amazing co-creators, who are Julie Wang, Brittany Navalis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, last name Brittany, Karen Jr., Eleanor Mays, and Jean Peabody and Simon Van Solus is also working with us as a facilitator. And we're working on a project that's very long-term, of course, called Crip Fleets. And it's about cripping citizen science and the environment, and also thinking about access intimacy as our process, our ways of being, and what is access intimacy, and thinking of that as a language and a body, mind, spirit way, embodied way, Crip embodied way of being with one another, but also with water, and thinking about water intimacy. And then that also as a you know, like as a entry point and ways of moving with the environment, and kind of working these ideas of how the environment is also been often disabled. And we'll be looking at, we went to Strawberry Creek. We had an in-person meeting, which was exciting. On Wednesday, sorry. And that was really exciting. And we did like entered the creek and met the creek in different ways. One group decided to walk around on a bridge. Another group of us decided to walk across the creek, and we learned a bunch doing that about like our access needs and about the water's needs, access needs and intimacy, and the ways that we enter and how we can be with water and with one another. We're not going to really totally reinvent things for citizen science. We're going to be working with some already DIY tools for citizen science water stuff, and looking at it because a lot of the citizen science groups that are really awesome, very awesome and very progressive, don't include disability. So we're going to look at some of those as a jumping off point and rework them. We also started an access intimacy journal, which everyone can add like their journaling experience of what they think access intimacy is and how it shifts throughout the day. And everyone's invited to do it in multiple ways, in any way that suits them, like by adding photographs, drawings, copy and pasting things from the internet, free writing, poetry, any way that we do that. So we're trying to build a language too in this way. But that's
Moira,
yeah.
I thought I said this, but can you explain access intimacy?
Yes. Yeah. I sure will. Access intimacy is a phrase that's been coined by Mia Mingus. And Mia Mingus is a disability scholar and activist, cultural activist, and disability, DJ, justice activists. And they do a blog called Leaving Evidence. And access intimacy, how Mia explains it, is that thing that we know that you understand kind of thing. Like, I get it. I get that you have access needs and I'm aware of it. So it's kind of like this, oh, thank you, Dana. It's kind of like this wink, wink. I know, you know, we know, but it's more than that. A lot of my work is about access intimacy, and it's about inviting people into a space to feel cozy. For me, I mean, and I believe it's different for every person. It's about inviting people into a space that's cozy for them. And primarily for me, it's about acknowledging that people, disabled people across disability, and I'm very, very much about across disability access and accessibility and access intimacy, that I'm acknowledging you and your needs, and that I'll do the best I can with my capacity. And then it's also fundamentally for me about trust, like how can we achieve instant intimacy if we don't have trust. So that's part of our process as our group working together. Is that helpful for everyone? That kind of explanation for access intimacy? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that, yeah, I think it's just that wonderful feeling when you're talking with someone and they have like either this same disability or like a cognate, and you don't have to like explain what spoons are for the millionth time, or you don't have to explain, yeah, let's go around this way, and then they're like, yeah, let's totally go around this way. Just that feeling that, hey, it's so great to be with someone who just, I don't have to explain shit.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like, I get it. And that's cool. Maybe I do it this way, but we'll all meet at some point, right? Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know, is there anything else? Is everyone familiar with and know about the term body, mind, spirit?
Tell us.
Okay, sure, thanks. So I'm Indigenous, and we often, at least my family, my tribe, my group of people, we always include spirit with stuff. And spirit, so I'll go backwards. Spirit can be anything from your religion, if you want it to be a religious thing, the way you think about the world, how you are in the world as like this temporal kind of being. Like for me, example, I really connect to the environment and to people. So that's kind of like my spirit thing of wanting to be really inviting to people and welcoming and respecting and acknowledging people for who they are, and all the beings in the world. So that would be my idea of my own spirit. So including that with my body mind, meaning my physical, tangible body, it's a thing, right? But it's more than a thing because it also has spirit and it has mind. And mind is how we may, along with body and spirit, how we may enter the world, be in the world, be with other people. So it's these components that are generally seen as components, not as a whole. But body, mind, spirit is a whole being, is the person, the being as an entire holistic life form, not chopped up in these ways that are eugenics or, racist or capitalist or classist. It's you are an entire being, and that's like where your lived experience comes from as well. Is that helpful? Does anyone want to add to that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like that idea of including the spirit, because I've heard of people talking about body, mind, like Margaret Price,
Mm-hmm.
one of the ones who's really like pushed this notion of let's talk about body, mind, rather than separating the mind and the body, and especially for people who are with psych disabilities or identify as mad, it's really important for us to acknowledge that it's a singular thing. I sometimes talk about neurological disabilities because I don't want to, like, people talk about the mind and they're like, oh, that's not your body, it's all in your head. But somehow if you say neurological, it becomes a little bit better. But then I also feel a little like, am I internalized shaming, stuff like that? But taking care of the spirit and sustaining your soul is so important. And like, how do we sustain our soul in all of this? It's not just the same as the body mind.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. That's awesome. And that's so true, because it is important to sustain ourselves, right? And to understand our capacities and each other's capacity, especially if we want to move towards things that, disability justice and just our own healthcare and care and everything else we want and desire, right? Because desire is part of that too, about your spirit and sexuality, right? Like it's all one. It's so important. But it also, for me, spirit also adds in the like cross disability and intersectionality, you know, so which I think is super important because different people think of their bodies differently too, you know, from different cultures.
Yeah, I don't know if you were here when we were having the conversation, like, you know, I turned on my video, but you know, I'm like in bed because I'm just zoned from my morning stuff. And there was a bit of access intimacy, like at the beginning of the meeting where we were like, I'm in bed. And then two other people said, I'm in bed too. And it was just, you know, and that's good. And to have, I think, like, you know, our lab to be okay with everyone doing just what's right for them at that moment is so important.
Yeah, I agree. It is so important and so beautiful to see, right? That we're supporting each other in that way by acknowledging and saying, okay, that's great. Be who you want to be, who you need to be.
So what's the plan for the rest of the spring for you guys?
Well, we're working on, we're going to be doing, and thanks for all the questions. Thank you so much. I feel so welcome. We're going to be doing embodied things, but tangible things as well. So we're looking at two different citizen science kind of DIY tools. One is Max Lebrun's from Civic Lab in Canada. Their baby legs that they co-authored with their lab to rework it so it's accessible for all sorts of disabilities. And then we're going to look at probably two other tools and hope to dream up and come up with several other tools if possible, depending on time. I mean, it sounds like a lot, so we're going to go at the pace we all need. We're going to be connecting with BORP, which is the Adaptive Sports and Recreation folks in Oakland, and go on a canoe trip with them. And they work, they do cross disability, recreation, and sports things, and water activities. So we're going to do that. And we're also going to do a couple field trips. One is to Lake Merritt, because from what I understand, it's accessible for everybody. So we're going to go check that out. Yeah, everyone can go canoeing. Yeah, we'll do it definitely. And also they removed the barriers, which is part of our thinking with water intimacy and access intimacy. They removed the barriers at Lake Merritt so a marsh could grow there. So by removing the cement, so I often think of like the waterways that have barriers, like Strawberry Creek has barriers. We also, we walked along that and talked about those cement barriers and how it's been moved and contained and all these things that are very similar, not only in built environment for disabled folks, but also, mentally, body, mind, spirit wise, having these cement barriers and whatnot and being moved without permission to accommodate ableism, So we're looking at that as ways to enter into access intimacy and water intimacy too, and build our citizen science tools, but also build a language, an access intimacy language, and our journals, and probably a whole toolkit from that that can be open sourced for people, and then ultimately an accessible boat. Yay!
That sounds, it's so interesting because I was thinking, a lot of times when the U.S. Park Service makes a trail accessible, they put all this wood and planking and barriers up, and so it might be more accessible in some ways, but it really cuts you off from, like, you can't hug a tree anymore and you can't feel the ground beneath your feet and all this tension. I really like how you're thinking on this. And then also I really like how you're thinking about how we disable the environment in particular ways. Like, Lake Merritt is so shaped, as you say, by our ableist needs, and it's been disabled too.
Yeah, it really has. And I think like you can think of the history like in an art history way from that really exploded across the country, across the US, was the Hudson Valley painters. Like really had so much to do with that by over romanticizing the land and making these paintings of the Hudson Valley that are inaccurate, that really erased all the industry that was going on and all the pollution and coal smog and everything, and just made these idyllic kind of paintings that also erased the people that were there in the beginning, the native folks. But yeah, the disabled environment is something I'm really interested in, and how we can have intimacy with that and understanding and empathy. But thank you, Karen. I mean, I think does anyone have questions? I feel like I'm taking up a lot of space. Oh, I love all the, yeah, I want, Karen says, I want to go canoeing. Can you invite the lab? Yes. I mean, maybe we can just organize our own field canoe trip, but it'd be great to do it with board because they have everything. And then a barbecue. Everyone seems to be very down with that. A barbecue with some free range tofu and mushrooms. Awesome. Reminds me of the idea of debility, pure, P-U-A-R, what you're mentioning, Karen, about disabling the environment. And Kyra says that would be wonderful. Dana says yes. And Abby says very down. And then, and then a question from Skylar: are you centering any of the citizen science tools on Strawberry Creek or local bodies of water in particular? One of the reasons, thanks Skylar for that question. One of the reasons that I wanted to be at Berkeley was foremost because of the Mad Rad Lab and all the awesome disability culture, but also because Berkeley has a legacy of doing citizen science and has this legacy of moving waterways too. So, and then doing restoration work on the same waterways, meaning the Strawberry Creek. So we are going to do some things on Strawberry Creek, mostly because I'm very, very concerned about everyone in the lab and their classes. So I don't want to add any stress. I want to be intimate with access for everyone in the lab. So we're going to work locally, and then we'll work also on weekends. It's not going to be mandatory to go look at other waterways together and think of the different waterways. And waterways, I'm also thinking, like, some people only have access to their bathtub. So we'll play with that idea too. And then Aman says, apologies, I have to take off for early discussion. Thanks, Aman. Bye. Have a great weekend. Let's see. And then there's a link from Dana for Jasper Purar, just putting in the reference. Yep. And then Skylar talks about wrecking the riparian zone with concrete. Yep, true. Bathtub, love bathtub. And then I don't want to take up any more space. Thanks for everyone and all your comments. Moira out.
Thank you, Moira. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was really awesome. And yeah, I agree. Dana sounds is very amazing, incredible. Okay, so we have propaganda up next. Kyoko, I believe, is going to be sharing for prop. Yeah, no worries, Kyoko. Yeah, we can see it, Kyoko. Thank you. We could totally rent a bus, or we could rent like 2 big vans. Audio shared. I don't hear any audio. You might have to click on it. Have to share it, Kyoko. Okay. Should be under the same share screen.
Hi everyone, it's Holly from Team Propaganda. I use the she, her pronouns.
And it's Mary, also from Team Propaganda. I use the she, her pronouns.
And here are updates. Once again, our team helps broaden the public reach of the lab, especially to crypt communities through social media and also connecting with other orgs and campuses. And here are some goal updates.
So moving on to our goal updates. Last week's goals were as such. And for this week, we have finished watching all lab recordings. They were made available just this week. Holly and I have taken notes and the feedback from the lab recordings and implemented them into our image captionings and also within our presentations. We're continuing to communicate with all the team projects and their leads for interviews, arrangements, and just to discuss about their projects. We'll also be getting back to you this week for those. We have also started content creation. If you look on our LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we started updating propaganda team profiles and are continuing to do those throughout the week. We've been having a little bit of difficulty here and there, but so far some of the social media has been updated. We have also started t-shirt and tote bag designs, and we currently have some in the next few slides for you to check out. And we have also continued adding to our campus and Bay Area disability or disability adjacent organizations and have their contact information. Thank you to those who have also contributed to that document. It helps a lot. And you can continue to add to those in the document. It should be in the Slack. We have shared it. And yeah, moving on to t-shirt design.
All right, so we have 2 t-shirts and 1 tote bag. This is the first option, a green long sleeve. It's a dark green cotton. It has our logo in front. That's white with dark navy blue lettering that says Rad Mad Lab, and it has our logo, the navy bear, cartoon bear with a gold yellowish bionic leg, heart and assistive hearing and seeing aids. It has our Instagram and Twitter handle beneath it at Rad Mad Lab. And then on the back of the t-shirt, it also says that in white lettering, like 9 times, all in caps, very nice and symmetrical. And it has our website, disability.berkeley.edu. The second option is the same. These images are a little higher quality, but it's just the same. It's the same, but it's a white cotton t-shirt and it has the logo again in a white circle in the front with navy lettering, and then has a similar like all the like 9 Rad Mad Labs on the back on our website. And then the third option is this tote bag. It's beige. It has the all of these designs have the same fronts and backs. It's just different products. So we're gonna send out a survey in the chat and Slack to give your thoughts on whether you like them or not, or if you have a different design idea or want, as well as your t-shirt size. And then we're gonna be figuring out how to fundraise and do this in the coming weeks, as well as trying to figure out the like optimal time to do it. And then, so try and do that survey when you can. And I think Kyoko's gonna be putting it in the chat right now. And then other question, what should the bear's name be? Really ponder on this for a second. Yeah. And so for next week, this/next week. We're still doing content creation. We're still doing the t-shirt and tote bag design, trying to figure that out. Also, we're updating the website to make sure each image has alt text like programmed into the image, and then they also have captioning on the website. On our general meeting, on the propaganda meeting on Sunday, we're gonna go over how to do this, and then also divvy up those pages for people. And then we're also meeting with Team Access and Team Data Mural, going to their meetings, seeing what they're up to, and then getting surveys from members as well as interviewing leads and getting photos so that we can start posting on social media for them, which is exciting. And yeah, that is it. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, Kyoko. And yeah, so the reason why we can't have a bear is, so long story short, UC Berkeley reserves the right for OSCE or any bear related image that's associated with Berkeley for its athletic team. Yeah, believe it or not. So any clubs, any organizations on campus that are not sports affiliated are not supposed to have a bear for a logo. So yeah, we've run into this problem. That's why we haven't had shirts for the last year or two, because of this. So I mean, it's a bear, not a bear. It's a fox bear. It's a beagle the bear, you know, big furry dog or a badger, whatever it is, but it's not a bear, right? Maybe we could say it's a koala bear, it's a marsupial. I don't know. But yeah, where it Berkeley came out with this at the start of the pandemic in 2020. We had just submitted an order for our shirts with what is it? What's a t-shirt? The real popular t-shirt maker? I forget. Anyway, you know, they make custom shirts for everybody, and we had already ordered through them for a while. How does Berkeley Architecture Research get away with it? It's probably old, or they go to somebody who doesn't care. Oh, really? Another club? Yeah, wouldn't let you. Yeah, you had to redesign. Yeah, and that's because of Berkeley, the copyright. Like basically, this T-shirt place couldn't do it because Berkeley reserved the copyright to its sports team, which I feel is, excuse my French, fucked up. Because you know, it's one of those things where it's like, so what? You're saying I can't be a bear because I don't play sports, right? Which I feel is very exclusionary for the rest of us who are not like, who don't play sports on NCAA sports teams. I don't really get why Berkeley would do that. I think it's a horrible idea that they did. And I think it's not just Berkeley. I think a lot of the other universities are doing it as well. But I think that's one of those things where, you know, if anybody knows any good lawyers, that might be one of those things where they got to check it out, because that's a copyright law thing. Yeah, no, exactly. My thing is, I say we do it anyway. What are they going to do? Tell us to stop? You know, Karen got tenure. We're good. So I'm not worried about it. You know, we'll be all right. Banana slugs. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, they can't own the copyright to all bears, surely. Yeah, Oliver. So basically, they said basically any bear related stuff that says that has a bear and Berkeley on it. And then basically, if we wanted to include Berkeley on the name, we would have to like include the city of Berkeley, and actually had to literally say, I have a picture of a bear plus city of Berkeley. And then if we put disability lab, we couldn't even put that either because it's connected to the university. So like their copyright is like completely blankets all of it. It's really ridiculous. Yeah. You know, I don't know how they get through it with UCLA, because UCLA has the Bruins, and that's a bear too. So how does that work, right? You know, but anyway, yeah, it's pretty messed up. So a lot of the bigger name shirt manufacturers, custom shirt manufacturers will not make us shirts. So that's why we've been having to find other ways to go about it. You know, which I feel is also a form of resistance at this point, because that's bullshit. You know, yeah, they're using a cub, but yeah, I asked that too. We could try that, and I asked them about that, but they said no. They said they wouldn't make us a shirt if we, even if we did that. So, I mean, they might have somebody who has it or who's cool with them. But yeah, they said like any bear related stuff, basically, even just a bear's face or a paw or a cub, like you were saying, because I asked them about that too. Yeah, no, we definitely need to use a different company, but I think Holly and the rest of Prop are hooking up with somebody else to get it done anyway. This was a couple years ago. So I think it's just custom t-shirts. Can we do it on Redbubble? Yeah, we could try, you know. Um, yeah, as long as we go, yeah, we definitely need a screen print workshop. I reached out to a couple of them out here last year, but unfortunately due to the pandemic, no one ever got back to me. So that's why another reason why it's been on hold. But I think Holly has had some success moving forward. So we'll definitely see what happens from there. Because that's, I think, another reason why Holly is doing the survey, because I think they found someone that will do it. But yeah, at the time, like, it was really hard to do. And I feel it's really shady too that Berkeley did it during a pandemic, you know, because then it's like people don't even know what's going on. All of a sudden, oh, we can't use bears anymore. But yeah, they do it. Oh, that would be awesome, Myra, if you could help with the workshop. Yeah, they basically did it to all, like, basically any clubs or organizations on campus that are not sports affiliated. They basically did it to, like, we can't use Cal letterhead, we can't use the italics, all this other stuff, because we're not sports team, which I think is ridiculous. Like, how, you know, that's not just ableist, that's also, there's so many different levels of just messed up. Like, so you're telling me I have to play sports to be able to use this logo, right? You know, what is that really saying? To what body mind is that privilege? You know, not to mention that the sports teams get everything that they want. You know, like they get like their gym, their everything. They get so much money. It's ridiculous. Their football coach is like, the Cal football coach isn't even that good. The dude is paid like, his overall contract is like, yeah, yeah, it's like 2 million a year over like 6 years. So he gets like, I think his contract is like 18 million. Yeah, for 6 years. It's ridiculous. And he's not even the highest paid in California. I think like UCLA, the coach there, I think is paid more. But anyway, yeah, so it's pretty ridiculous. Suan says we don't want to give them the publicity anyways with these rude policies. No, I agree. It's just messed up that we can't even like celebrate our school that we're you know, we're alum of, because we don't play sports. You know, I think that's just foul, you know. But anyway, okay, so I think that was the last update we had. It's 13:48 or 1:48 right now. I want to leave some time for anybody else if they have any questions, or if anybody wants to put anything out. Kira says, when they use school mascots as a symbol of school spirit and belonging, then deprive some members of the university's community of the ability to use it, certainly makes a statement. Yeah, I mean, considering that the majority of the student body do not play sports, I think that says a lot. You know, like that, you know, there's a lot of clubs at Berkeley too, clubs, organizations and whatnot, and none of us can use it because we don't play sports. That's pretty ridiculous. Like, and I think even the goalball team, you know, are like the accessible sports that they have here can't even use it. So you know, what does that say, right? So I mean, honestly, I think they're going to open themselves to a lawsuit. It's just one of those things where finding a copyright lawyer who cares, I think, is going to be the bigger issue, because you know, it's not an ADA compliance thing. So yeah, we're all paying fees for that. Yeah, don't even get me started. We used to have like an accessibility gym thing here, and then anyway, yeah, I'm not going to open it all up too much, but yeah, they got rid of the person who was doing it, and that was it. Andrea says Neurodiversity Month is during March, and had a meeting on Wednesday.
Hi, Nate. I just wanted to let everyone know that Neurodiversity Month is in March, and they have a few events that's going to be going on. So I just want to give everybody an opportunity to look it up if they want it, and I can share the information, and maybe it can be added to Slack.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And one other thing, they were looking for different activities, and one of the things we talked about was possibly doing a video game, maybe some type of video game, maybe a competition or something like that. And I told him maybe I could reach out to the lab and see if we had anybody that may be interested or would know anything about how to put something on like that online.
What type of video games? Sorry, we had Nate was leading up a group that we had, we right now we have 2 main groups, but we had a accessible video game
Okay.
group.
They don't really
What
have
type
an idea yet. So they just kind of like throwing it out there. We just talked a little bit about it. We're just trying to figure out how to get people involved. And so they only have things like the Jeopardy game, like a trivia game so far. And, we were just trying to figure out how we can get people involved.
But this is for neurodiverse folks only? I'm sorry, I'm running out of spoons.
Neurodiversity, that's the thing. I don't know if it's only for neurodiversity people only, but I can find out more about that. But I told him I would reach out to the lab and see if maybe somebody was interested.
Yeah. Hey, Nate, do you want to describe your accessible video gaming just a bit?
I mean, if you have time, or we can reach out later, maybe.
I mean, it was mostly about making accessible video game controllers. Which we did, that was a while ago now though. But basically we just took, some stuff that was around us, and we were able to order some parts on Amazon. So we were able to make accessible video game controllers for like less than 30 bucks, which is really cool considering that they cost upwards of 1,500. So, that may be something that we could do in the future, or something that'd be cool maybe for the competition is like, hey, design your own accessible video game controller and then play with it, because we could play anything from anything as like Galaga all the way up to like games like Dark Souls. So
that's what we're looking for, just like information. I mean, I have one son that's little that games and then a grown son that games, so I just know about gaming, but I don't know what to do and how to do it. But I just know that both of them are interested in.
Yeah, I mean, that may be something we can definitely talk about. Let's maybe talk about it offline because I know we're going to run out of time in a few minutes.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned the meeting for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Moira again. I just want to invite you all to our next Tuesday lab because we're going to meet at Strawberry Creek. And I brought hydro microphones and we're going to be listening to the water if anyone wants to join us. So that's an open invitation. We're meeting at 10:30 and I can share all the info with everyone. Yeah, so we're going to kind of get into the creek and check it out a little more and get a little more intimate with it. Moira.
And Moira, I wonder if you've thought of like, or maybe just give it to the kids to think of like how to make the hydrophones like more deaf accessible. I mean, one of the ways would be to, just put your hand on the actual speaker cone itself and you can feel the vibrations, but other things would be to hook it to like a Raspberry Pi with a little screen so that you can see the sound waves.
Oh, I would love to do that with the Raspberry because I have done the feeling the vibration, but it's a great idea with the Raspberry because I've been wondering how you visualize that. And I'm not really super tech, so.
Or a Chromebook. Chromebooks, yeah, all the kids will have Chromebooks. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but yeah. Trap some lab kids and stick them in a room for a couple minutes until they give you until they figure out maybe how to put Audacity onto a Chromebook. Audacity is an open source.
Oh yeah, I have Audacity. I can do that.
Sound
awesome. Thank you.
Well, okay, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. Eat good food, get the rest you need, take care of your body, mind, spirit, and the people that care for you, and that you're all loved and needed in this world. So take good care. Okay, and again, congratulations to Nate, Aman, and Skylar for getting into multiple programs and stuff, and well, one thing I want to say is, we all of them really like asked other lab people for help and got examples of grant proposals and stuff, and we really encourage that is to use the lab. If you want to apply for a program, ask other people what they apply to, or if you're working on a grad school application, and ask people who are grad students, or we have so much knowledge in our community. Okay, Karen out. See y'all when we see you.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.